Okay, so dear friends, a quick intro. As we know, the Rebbe every year, Yud Shevat, the Rebbe would explain one of the oisius of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer. Quickly, I know for many of us this is very familiar. The Frierdiker Rebbe gave out Ma'amorim in the last Kufa. We're talking about Tafshin Yud before he passed away. So there was a Maimer. The Maimer was divided into paragraphs, and then he would write. In other words, he would if I may use the word recycle, he would take a Maimer that was previously published, and he would change the opening and he would make some changes and republish the Maimer. The Maimer Basi Legani, the Frierdiker Rebbe prepared this Maimer and prepared an opening and a closing for the first two Ma'amorim, and the second two Ma'amorim, he didn't have a chance, he passed away before. So the Ma'amorim, there were four Ma'amorim published, Yud Shevat and Yud Gimel Shevat, the yahrzeit of his mother and Bobby, and then there was a Purim Maimer and a Beis Nissen Maimer. So the Purim Maimer, so altogether there are 20 paragraphs. And so the Rebbe, Yud Shevat, every year the Rebbe would explain, develop the ideas in one ois for 20 years, over the 20 paragraphs. And this year corresponds with the 14th ois in Basi Legani. So a quick overview is needed before we begin reading the Frierdiker Rebbe's ois. In Basi Legani, so we're going to start on page 7 on Zion. This is the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, the ois in the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer. In the ois of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, in the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains that our job in this world is to bring the Shechina down into this world. How do we do that? Through Iskafia and Ishapcha. And the earliest period when that happened as a nation was in the Mishkan. And the Avodas in the Mishkan represent Iskafia and Ishapcha. And so we are the army of Hashem. And what are we here to do? We're here to bring the Shechina down into this world. And the Frierdiker Rebbe explains that in order for us to achieve victory, towards the end of the battle, things get difficult. And when things get difficult, the Frierdiker Rebbe brings a mashal that a king, when there are war times, he's bizbuz ha'oitzeres. He takes all the treasures that are in the palace, and the way the Frierdiker Rebbe explains it, it's not only that he squanders all his money, but a true oitzer is something that you don't even show to other people. You're talking about the most precious artifacts that are concealed from the eye, generations of the king's family collected. And because there's such a matzav of war, the king is just mavazves everything. And to who does he give it? He gives it to the foot soldiers, because they're going to make it happen. They're bringing the victory about. And so that's what happens. Hashem, in order to help us win the war, Hashem is mevazveis the eitzris. Now the question becomes, what are the treasures? So in order to explain what are the treasures, I would say in a general way, the Frierdiker Rebbe says that there are treasures in the soul. We have treasures in us. There's a eitzer of Yira Shamayim inside us. There's a eitzer, just like think of the mashal of the king, that ayin lo yira'asa, there are depths inside our neshama, in the etzem of our neshama, there are koiches that are deeply hidden, and they're only revealed in order to win this war. And then the Frierdiker Rebbe says there are eitzres in Hashem that Hashem reveals. In order to explain what are these eitzres, the Frierdiker Rebbe begins that I want you to know. He brings a lashon Zohar. The Zohar says that Eirein Soiv L'mayla mayla adein kates, or l'mata mata adein tachlis. That the light of the Ein Sof, the light of Hashem, reaches the highest, and this is the Lashon HaZoyar, it reaches the highest places above and touches the lowest places below. That's the Lashon HaZoyar. Now the Frierdiker Rebbe in the Maimer develops heavily what is the meaning of each of Lamata Mata Adein Tachlis and Lamayla Adein Kates. Don't lose me because I'm going to try to make this clear. So give me a minute.
Simplify it.
Yeah, and then he says, and by the way, the Eitzah is even greater than the Maila Adein Kates, the Lamata Mata Adein Tachlis. But that's in next year's simon. The Eitzah is even greater. So what is this Lamaila, right? In other words, what does it mean? Eirin Seif, Lamata Mata Adein Tachlis, meaning that the light of Hashem, because it's Ein Sof, wherever he goes, you feel that it's Ein Sof. So in other words, Hashem created, there are Esser Spheres, but really what do we learn? That Kodim Atzimtzum, there are Spheres Ein Kates. There's infinite spheres. And then Bechlal, the Esser Spheres themselves, they're infinite. And then when you come into this world, there are Marabu Masecha Hashem. There's an infinite amount of creatures. Everything is it's like infinite gvul. Why? Because the creator of all of this is Eirin Sof. So whatever he touches, you see expressions of Eirin Sof wherever he goes. Okay, now this ice.
That's one shot, isn't it?
No, in other words, in Spheres and then Eilamais Atzilus. There's Eilamais Ein Gates.
What is the
You get seen in creation too.
right? But what does the Ein Sof have to do? Like, what do we need to know, or how does that apply to us?
Universe.
For us, it's, no matter where we are, we hit it, right? So what do we care about? Oh, he's more than that. That's almost like a little bit, you know.
So here.
That's like it's
First
okay.
of all, he's being very specific, right? He's saying
travel through the universe.
that if you look at creation, because Eirin Sof is what creates everything,
right.
so even in the Gvul, there are traces.
That it's
Right,
inside, like sand.
right. Let's say
So much sand.
Let's say you say, oh, the
But
coolest.
that's
In
not.
order,
But that's
So much
that's
water.
not- that's not
in order to
Ein Sof.
create a finite world,
Right.
so he was mitzamtzim himself.
That doesn't apply. Forget about
So
the
he was
time.
mitzamtzim. So now the gvul is gvul.
So then it's not Ein Sof.
What do you
Meaning
mean?
it's a distinction by just using the word, by saying Ein Sof, you're implying that
Yeah, but when
it's
you
Ein
say
Sof.
the Mata
So if you're saying
Mata-
that this world is not Ein Sof, then that's it. You're out of it. If you say this world's Ein Sof, then there's no. Again, trying to define it and trying to
No,
limit
not
it.
define, to
loses-
show you.
So that's
different
it. The fact that
things.
you say Ein Sof, that's what it implies. Now, by your mind's trying to take each thing and say up to here.
Right,
Oh,
right.
and more.
To sh-
But
right.
that's a play on your
Wait,
head to.
No, in this now he's going to talk about his blindness in this ice. It's just ways. Let me say it from a different way.
That's what I'm asking. How does it
Oh, let me say it-
affect you,
Right,
or
let me
is
say
it
it-
so that you should know?
Wait, in a different way. In other words, we look at our life and we say, all this talk about Ein Sof, it's very nice, but I don't know about you. I feel limited. We live in a finite world. So the Rebbe, the more examples you give in our own experience that we could sense something Ein Sof in it, say, oh. In other words, everyone who says, "Oh, you can't," the Abish there, you can't see him, you can't know him.
But that's not Ein Sof, because the second we think that we got it, that's going to make it Ein Sof.
But that's what he's saying.
So
Bifrat in this ice. Bifrat, yes.
so it's like a bit of it's saying more. It's like the finish, not the finish line, but like something, the motivation for the person, as opposed
No.
to the reality.
Remember that ultimately he's coming to talk about that there's a treasure. The treasure is even greater, is even beyond this. Okay, let's see. Let's take a look. So now let's read you down inside. Let's see.
And the Milo,
We're gonna Lamaila. In other words, he explains it Lamata first, and then he the kolza. Yeah, with the hafla, with how incredible the light of Hashem is, nevertheless, the ata mechayes kulam ksiv, that the Eibishter mechaya, he gives the life of every creature is from the Eibishter. In other words, like we learn in many ma'amorim, that the Eibishter, that Hashem is like the neshama of all of creation. The ha'oras oidaliki. Hare nimshach lahavos or lahachayos as kol hanivroim me'ayin liyesh. Lahavos means to bring into existence. Lahachayos means to sustain them once they've been created, to keep everything alive. Kedisa begeras hakedir simin chav. The ha'ora. What is the Alter Rebbe saying? That what actually keeps us? What actually gives us life? It's actually a ha'ara. The ha'ara, it's a ray of, where is it coming from? From the Orein Surf. And ha'ara, a little remnant of that light, who b'chol hanivroim v'noitzrim v'nasim. He uses the three lashonos of the Olam HaBriya and Yetzira and Asiya. Shehu ha'or v'achayis eliki shenimshach b'chol hanivroim. That's the light of Hashem. This Eid Ein Sof is Mechaya, all of creation. Uke Maimer, Hazon Umafarnes, the Gemara says, the Gemara is talking about what Hashem does every hour. Oh, he does this, and he plays with the Leviosim, and he learns, and this and that. And then at one point, he's Hazon, whatever the certain time, he makes sure that every being has Panosa. Hazon u'mafarnes mikarne re'emim, from the horns of wild bulls, ad beitzei kinim, till the nits. What do you
Lice.
Yeah, the lice eggs.
A louse.
Beitzei kinim, the lice egg.
One is a louse.
Singular, yeah.
But he's doing this.
That little space.
I don't want to know.
That this is meir v'nimshach gam b'madreges. Before he said that the chayes aliki is spheres ad ein kates, and it's eilamais ein kates. But Pashat, the light of the Eibishter in this world is mechaya everything. Ukamesha kosuf im esak shamayim shamata. If I ascend to the highest place, the Eibishter is there. Ve'atziyah shoel, if I go down, hineka, there you are, Eibishter. Says the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Zeo, his beinus gedoyla, b'gdulas havaya. This is a great meditation. Shenimshach b'kol seder ha'ishtalshulos, mimadrega lamadrega, ad madregas bruim hayeser shvelu. In other words, think about it from this aspect. I don't want to complicate it, but say, in a pashut way, from the Mamali Kol Almin perspective. So, from the thank you. From the Mamali Kol Almin perspective, the brain is, in other words, the brain is a oir and a keli. The eye is a oir and a keli. Every particular limb and body part has its particular chayas. Right? A neshama, every person has his own neshama. What happens with the light of Hashem? One light is mechaya everything. You don't say, wait a second, it's a pasnish. Maybe for this to be mechaya animals, maybe we have to introduce a different mocker.
Voltage.
Yeah.
What's the point in davening of Va'ata Mechayas Kulam? That the same Ata, the same you is everybody, which is that's an incredible hisbodedus, the greatness of Hashem. And it's the greatness from every aspect. First of all, the greatness of Hashem that everyone has an equal. It's not for this one, for that one, right? In other words, and second of all, that's the highest of everything. Yes, he says, "B'yechelas kol adam va'adam." Within the capacity of every person, Gam aposhut b'yeser leidazes. Everyone could know this. Everyone sees. Everyone sees the. Thank you. Everyone sees the greatness of Hashem. Kavita, please make a bracha. Right? Everyone sees. This is something everyone could see. His bein nezu eise his spilus gedele benefesh. Why does this his beinus has the greatest impact on a person? Why? Because you could see it. And says the Rebbe, you want to know why the emes you're nispol? Because the kol zehu the fisha eiru ein seif be'etzem. Why are we nispol? Why is it amazing? Because what's the excitement behind it? Because there's eir ein seif. That's why. In other words, when a person sees something it's just the
Awesome.
you buy a kid gets a toy, you won a raffle, he comes home in 10 minutes it's broken, right? You open it up,
What's the trick?
it's all
in China.
right. In other words, what is it? You look at it, it's just pieces. There's no hispilus. You're not impressed. There's no excitement by looking at the parts. It's like, it's just parts.
My kids used to take everything apart. They loved the parts.
Oh, there are other things where there's chachma, right? In other words, here there's an excitement. When a person is misbainen,
Right.
in other words, we talk about all the diversity of the world. Marabu masecha magadlu. There's wonder. Why is it something that brings wonder? Because it's from Ein Sof. Al Kain, being that it's the Ein Sof, Ein Sof Gam Kain Lis Pashtusei. Beribuy Amadreges, Ishtalshlos Ad Lamata Mata Mamash until the lowest Madrega. Now the Frierdiker Rebbe continues in another Nakuda. It's important to understand. Remember that we're talking about Ein Sof. So ubekol mokim shehu nimshach, wherever he reaches, umispashet, eine bihispailos v'hishtanos klal. The Eibishter remains unmoved, unchanged. In other words, he's going to bring a mashal a little later. But right, we spoke many times that Chassidus brings from the Mekubalim that there was an investigation. What language to use about Hashem? A flow, a light, energy, right? There's a different ideas. Why was Ur chosen? Because the way Ur functions is that it doesn't change the Ur, right? Just like when we talk about the sun, it doesn't matter to the sun if it's cloudy or not cloudy. The sun shines. Fire, it gets light. That's it. He does. Now it's not correct from all aspects, right? There's one nakuda. The point is that the oir of Hashem, Hashem isn't affected. Hashem remains. He just erscheint does. There's no hishtanus. There's no hispilus. The Eino, it's not like Kedimin and Neshama V'Aguf. the haneshama, harei mispa'eles mimikre haguf. Right? This itself has to be understood. What does it mean that the neshama is nispol, mimikre haguf? Right? But
Emotion.
the fact that when a person
Emotionally damaged.
grows, when a person matures, their interests change. Right? Their love changes. They want, little
From
kids,
Lego
little
to cars.
toys, right, etc.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's a change, so that shows that the goof affects the neshama, because you're born with a neshama. Avalo eiru aliki, hamacha yom ahava, the eir of Hashem, einim nispol, the einim mishtana klal. It doesn't change. The Eibush there, he is. Mash yochali is shinui b'eir al yedei ha'islapshus. What if, in other words, the change that there could be in eir? What does that mean?
So, but you could say also like when a person there's a process of sort of like an evolution to the brain, to the body, and all of that. But the Eibusher, there's no
Right.
It's complete from the day one. It's already it's everything. So there's no room for it to transform because it's everything. You're getting everything at day one.
Right. The mashal is it's one aspect of the mashal, right? There's in other words, we're trying to give this. We're trying to say the Eibush is not mispol, not because from the beginning he was mature. The Eibush is not mispol because he's not mispol.
Right, he's not nispal.
Right.
I'm saying on a sense of how we're comparing it to us, as a
Right.
physical person, it's we have different departments. We have that's what I'm saying, that the Rebbe just doesn't go through those means and methods.
Right.
It doesn't have that this comes and that comes. That's the definition of what the is from the Mar.
Right,
The Mar,
that's
the
the
Eibush is the
way-
Eibush, and the
that's
that
the
comes
way
from it is
it
going to be
works.
always pure, and it's not going to change based on time, place, motion, or anything like that.
Right. Now there's another lashon in that we bring in Chassidus, which is the lashon koyach. Right? There's the koyach of Hashem, koyach eliki. The inyan of koyach is in order to show how strong you are, you have to show off. You have to flex. You have to pick up a weight. You have to throw something. Otherwise, we don't know how strong you are. Even flexing, you see a muscle, but you don't know until. In other words,
You need
the
a
koyach
counter.
has to be mislabish into something in order for it to show that it's there. When we say that there's a koyach eleki, the koyach eleki, not oyer, but koyach means, and there is such an Indian that the Eibishter has a koyach, and that's what we talk about in Elam is biyah. In order to the famous lashon about why Hashem created the world that He brings from Eitz Chaim, she is galu shleimus koyach, right? So the lashon is koyach, right? Because in koyach you have to have in what. So that's different than oil. He says v'hainu ma shehai hislapshus poil eze shinui. When we say that hislapshus affects a change, is only in the chayis that's in bechinas koyach. Yodua the chayis shu bechinas koyach hu me'akelim debiyah. In other words, kelim debiyah, they, in order for them to be what they are, they have to be invested in something. Otherwise, there's no koyach. The kelim debiyah harehem bechinas metzias. In Eilam Abriya, there's already the beginning of a nivra. It's already a metzias.
They have to, because koyach is, that's what koyach is.
Ukaditza bigeres hakedesh anal, the reish is hayesh, the first stage of being is kelim debiyah. Mishum zeh, because there are metzias, shayich bohem shinui v'hahispilus. That's why they change. They get they get
Excited.
Yeah, excited. They're moved, right? They get, like you ask someone not to get emotional. They're like, "What am I, a malach? Ich bin doch fort am Mensch. How could someone's going to insult me and I'm not going to react? What do you want from me? I'm a malach." In Biyah, there's already yeshes. There's already a degree of a sense of self. I want a little sugar. This is thank you.
I'm going to want some sushi. That looks fresh.
Yeah, but in other words, the oil that gives us life, ain by shum shinu v'espilus klal. You know, we talk about in Chassidus that what we think about Hashem, and then when we go back into the world, it goes away. In other words, there's so much effort required to connect with spirituality. Because what are we connecting with? We're connecting with the light in Biyah. Because we're on a low level. We're just refining a little bit. So because it's a Metzias, it's so temperamental. There's so much hispilus, there's so much shinui. In other words, life is very matter of fact. Like, you're alive. It's like almost effortless. Of course, you have to eat and all of that. Yeah, I understand. But there's something about life that the neshama is in the goof.
It's work.
Well, left. It's not. Understand? If I'm speaking and I feel like every word that sometimes when if I'm recording, and I feel like every word I have to, I'm working, I stop. You gotta hang up. It's not because that's not the way it's supposed to be, right? In our relationship with our own edelkeit, our own refinement, is so much about shinui. It's so much about hispilus and shinui, and that's why it's so temperamental. Because it doesn't come easy. The whole thing is delicate. The whole thing is a process. So it bounces back. It's like, people who use clamps, when you're gluing something or whatever, right? Imagine you glue something, you're going to hold it. Right? In other words, in koyach, that's what happens. That's like holding weights. Holding weights is like trying to hold down a clamp with how long can you do this, right? It's tremendous effort. Oir, on the other hand, is simple. Lefi, I'll just mention also when you talk about being Makarev Yidden, right? So it's the same. For some people, when they're Makarev other people, it's like oil. They show them Yiddishkeit, right? They show them Yiddishkeit. You have 20 people at your table. 5 people are paying attention. A few people are caught up with themselves, whatever, and that's it. You have some people, it's before Shabbos they send them an email and then when they come, which wine do you want? And I got you the napkin and here's what you wanted, and this is not gluten, and that one is this, right? It's a whole, it's asklus, right? It's exhausting, right? It's there's such a hispilus, and there's so much shinui, right? The method is, look, this is who I am. Come experience my Shabbos. You're just being who you are. You're not changing. You're sharing your light.
Yeah, you're not selling it.
The koyach aspect is a whole different aspect.
Seems like a Seder night, as opposed to Friday night.
What happens by the Seder?
It's a whole geschäft. Everything is a geschäft.
It's funny they call it Seder because there's absolutely no Seder.
No. So, but in the Eir Hamachayim, Ein Beishum Shinu V'Yispailas Klal Melept Fishe'enim Mis'ariv. Kamesha Kosov says like this. We say every day in Enkel Akenu, before Enkel Akenu and Kaveh, we say Ein Kodesh Ka Hashem Ki Ein Biltecha. There's no one holy like Hashem. Isa B'Zayir says the Zayir like this. Kamo Kadishin Inun. There are several entities that are holy. Not only the Eibush that is holy, Malachim are holy, the Torah is holy, Tzaddikim are holy. There's different things that are holy. However, the Leis Kaddish Ka Hashem, but no one's holy like the way Hashem is holy. What does it mean? So he explains. Kaddish Havaya, Eine Kemei, Kamo Kadishin, the Seder Ishtalshalos. Kadishin Shebe Seder Ishtalshalos, what makes something in Seder Ishtalshalos holy? That he remains distant. How do you become holy? By separating yourself. You separate yourself, you're holy. You distinguish yourself, you're holy. What's the Lashon? Nubi's up tasteless? Right? By marriage, the Asalo Akula Alma Kehegdish. Right? In other words, what's Hegdish? It's miyuchedes to the person and also Akula Alma. How do you become holy? Separation. So he says that's what happens with all the other. The Kaddish in Shebeseder Ishtalshalos Hu Shekadish Umuvdo. Ukdushasam Hu She'enam Boim B'Islapshus, that they stay distant. Avo Kashem Islapshim. But if they get involved, Harehim B'Bchinas Tfisa. They're caught up. Utfisa Poyel Shinui. It changes you. Mashenkin Kaddish Havaya, which is the darge of Oyer, Eine Doime La Kaddish in the Seder Ishtalshalos. He's different. The who, Ma the Eine Mislabish, the Eibishter just remains. The Kasher Bob Islapshus, even when he is at the Eine B'Bchinas Tfisa. We don't have a grip on him. He's not held by. Yeah, it's so simple, but Madafas is touched.
Yeah, say it again, because I'm getting lost.
You know, sometimes you meet a person, you meet a child, a chinuch, and you don't know how do you get through. You know, you see a kid, he's frustrated, you want to help him. What are the right words? And then you rack your brain, and you have to figure out. And you've been the Messiah resign. I'll talk to last year's Rebbe, what worked. Then you meet people. They just have a gift. They just know the right thing. They don't have to. By them, it's like obvious. Like just you know how to say good morning. They know the right thing to say. They just know the right thing to say. Right? I'm saying as a marshal. Think about it.
So right.
By the Eibishter, even when he's mislabish, he's not caught up in it.
It's natural.
Right? It's just. What do you need? You need fine, no problem.
It's like if you go to
in
work.
other words, he has the buttons. Every button has a different soda. He doesn't have to go and change the flavor and. You understand? It's all available. It's all by the Eibishter. So he's not nespol. It doesn't affect him. Oh, someone needs something else. Oh, it's all. What are you gonna do?
You know that.
Right?
You kept it Kaddish even after this.
By the Eibishter, it doesn't. Whatever you need doesn't matter. He doesn't. There's nothing to get excited about.
Everything's in house.
It's outside, right?
He doesn't have to take a loan from the bank.
So therefore, he's never b'chinas tfisa. He's never emotionally entangled. He doesn't get mixed in.
That we should learn a lesson from that.
It's like light in this world. It's meir, it's shining, but he doesn't get caught up. He just does his thing. It's like light through a glass. There's a red light, and there's a green light, and there's a white light. He brings in the order that it's connected to 3 kavim. He means smell v'emtza. The light is going to look different now. But the oil itself is plain light. The colors of the glass don't do anything. The fish, it even when the Eibishter is mamish mislabish in every nivra, mikol mokaim hare'enon nitfas. It's not held down. It's not gripped. No one could take it and walk away. You know, the Rebbe. It bothered the Rebbe so much, and the Rebbe spoke so much about this Indian that people misquote him. You know, the guy would walk out of Fabrengen and say, "Yeah, the Rebbe said." The Rebbe never said. The Rebbe never said that. And people go out with such. It happens all the time that people they hear something,
But they want to hear.
yeah, and then they put it on the Rebbe's words. They misunderstood the fact.
My kids, they're
The Rebbe said you can't have
I'm
an
a set.
No. I'm saying right without getting in a particular thing. It's a famous thing, and the Rebbe said, "Don't. If you didn't hear it from me, I didn't say it." In other words, don't. But imagine even someone who heard from. That's what happens. That's the way the brain works. We have right. So what he's saying here is the Eibishter. So what happens? The Rebbe speaks, and then someone takes the Rebbe's words, and in a certain way is controlling. They're controlling the hashpah of the Rebbe. They're using the hashpah of the Rebbe. So the Rebbe is nitfas. We have, so to speak, we have a grip.
Fraud. They think it's not.
No, gem.
So what he said by the Eibishter, he says the way oil works, even when he's mislabish, he's not nitfas. You can never grip. The Eibishter stays.
No, why? Because he doesn't say anything, so you can't be mafarish.
Make a yuvan derech dugma,
Can't explain.
just like the colored lights.
Quiet.
The light of the Eibishter that creates doesn't change. The kol zehu, this is all because the oir is ein soif be'etzem. Al kein therefore gam his pashtus hu b'chinas ein soif. It spreads endlessly. Shenimshach b'kol ha'madregas ad ha'madrega yeser achreinis. V'ayeser tachreinis in the farthest places. The Rebbe explains even the lowest klippus and in klippus. The Rebbe, in other words, there's klippa that's from the Eibishter. Treifa food. Shows klippas atmeyas. The Eibishter created it. But then there's klippa that human beings created. And that's even lower. And still the Eibishter is machaya. And in a even of believable. The Rebbe speaks about, one of the things the Rebbe speaks about is that you have a person who in his life has Oirei Soif is manifesting in his life. In other words, he's having success in business in like a special way. And somewhere deep in his mind, Mistama, he knows that's a nish zayna koiches. And he walks around saying koichi vayitzim yodin. So he takes the expression of Oirei Soif in his
I
life.
think it's him.
And the expression of Ein Soif, he's taking for himself, and still the Eibishter,
Who's given?
and it's still Ein Soif. And he says, so here, but K'maya Bruim HaYoser Shveilim B'tachlis, the lowest Bruim, V'kol Mokim Shu Nimshach. Wherever he is, Einem Mispol, Einem Mishtana, V'liyos, B'bchinas Pshitus Be'etzem, being that the Ein Soif is Poshet, is pure, Al-Kain, therefore, but it's Ein Soif, but the ribu is chalkos madregas, beli shir beli gvul klal, endless levels, and that's the meaning of lamata mata adein tachlis. Should be a spashtus v'gilui. We have to also remember another part that I didn't talk about in this whole thing, is that what is oir? Oir is revelation, right? When you say, in other words, a person has different things they could do. They could give chesed. So when they give chesed is helping someone. So what did they give? They gave someone a pair of shoes. What is oir? Oir is revelation. What does it reveal? It reveals you.
The person is coming.
Oir, right? The light that comes out of the candle is, in other words, you turn on one light and it's white, and you turn on another light and it's yellow. Why? Because this one, the light, the source is white, and that one, the source is yellow. What is Oir? Oir's job is to reveal the Moir. Oir is Gilui, revelation. That's its job. When you say Oir Ein Sof, its job is to reveal
That God is
Ein
infinity.
Sof. So it has to reveal it. In other words, we always talk about how Hashem is hidden, and it's Cheshach Kafel Mechupo, and the word Oila means helen, concealment, hidden, and we're living in the darkest and the Ein Tachten Lamatov. But Oir Ein Sof, Oir means revelation, and the revelation has to be Madreges Hayeset Tachtoinus, in the lowest places. Should be espashtus, that's what he's saying. Be espashtus ubegilui. It's revelation. Ad gamba madregas ayesa shveilim betachlis. In the lowest place. In other words, what the Rebbe is saying is, if you talk to me, I'll show you wherever you look. In the lowest place, you're gonna find that it's Eirin, so it's a revelation of the Eibishter. It's being expressed. Now, let's talk a few minutes about the Maimorim, and then we'll call it a night for tonight. Unless maybe we should call in maybe we can get a minion going. Lamazen. We're close. So, Rabbi said like this: Bechlal, when Yud Shevat was on Shabbos, when Yud Shevat was on Friday, when Yud Shevat was on Friday, the Rebbe said a few times, I don't know exactly how many years, the Rebbe said 3 Ma'amorim. The Rebbe said a Ma'amor Friday night. Memchaz already do it, Basi Legani. The Rebbe said a Ma'amor Friday night. We're talking about a Kviyas, Tov Shin Chov Daled. The Rebbe said Friday night a Ma'amor, then Shabbos day by Fabrengen, the Rebbe said a Ma'amor, and then the official Yud Shevat Fabrengen was actually Motzei Shabbos. And Motzei Shabbos, the Rebbe said a third Ma'amor.
So Yud Beis.
Huh?
I'm sorry, Yud Beis.
It's already.
Yud Beis.
You're saying that it happened also. Right? Yeah, exactly. I'm not whatever. I don't want to throw out other whatever. I'm on record, so I'm not gonna say, oh, it was Lamed Aleph and whatever. Anyway, okay. Now, unfortunately, this year, Tavshin Chav Daled, we don't have Hanochos. Not from the Friday night Maimer, and not from the Shabbos day Maimer. Only the Motzei Shabbos Fabrengen is recorded. So there's a Maimer. Yeah, so Rabbi Yoel wrote at some point, he wrote some notes on this Maimer from the Rebbe. In other words, once there was a Hanocha from the tape, he wrote what he remembered, certain things that the Rebbe spoke Shabbos, that the Rebbe didn't speak right from the Maimer on Shabbos. So he wrote, so here what they did was, they printed the Maimer. I have to talk about something else for a minute. So what they did was they printed the Maimer, and here you have a footnote. That's what Rabbi Yoel remembered. You see that Aleph, and you see later it gets a little more extensive, like over here. Okay? Now, Shabbos day, the Maimer was not Basi Legani. Shabbos day, the Rebbe said a Maimer on the Haftarah of the Parsha, Tzidkas Perzoyne, which basically there's a Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe on Tzidkas Perzoyne B'Yisrael. The word like Prozes Teshav, there are two ways to say the word: Pizroin and Prozes. Right? One is to scatter, and one is to be.
That's the same one.
One means that you're going to live without borders, that you're fearless, basically, and the other is scattered. In other words, so the Rebbe started the Maimer Shabbos day with Tzidkas Perzeine, And the Rebbe spoke like 3-4 Asias, let's say 15 minutes. And then the Rebbe went in Basi Legani. Okay, he segued a bridge into Basi Legani. In that Maimer,
And
Tzidkas,
no one remembers this.
into that Maimer, Tzidkas Prezeinai, it's here. In that Maimer, it also speaks about the Oitzer. The Rebbe speaks about a Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he speaks about the Oitzer and the king and the treasures and this. And then he segues into Basi Legani. So the Hanocha that we have from Shabbos, we only have till the Rebbe segued into Basi Legani. You understand? The only thing we have is the first part till Basi Legani, and then we don't have the Hemshech. You understand? Anyway, so the Basi Legani that's printed here is from Motzi Shabbos with Rabbi Yoel's notes. Clear? So in this book we have two Mamorim, Tzidkas Perzeinai. That's only the first part till Basi Legani, and then there's Basi Legani with the Rebbe's notes. Then the Rebbe also Tafshin Mem Daled. So Tafshin Mem Daled, the Yud Shevat was Shabbos, and the Rebbe and the Basi Legani was Shabbos. So we have one. So we don't have a recording of the Tafshin of 1984. Okay, we have one recording, Motzei Shabbos, from Tafshin Chav Daled, the third.
It's just
minor.
an audio recording.
Yeah, just an audio recording, the fourth minor. Okay, so that's just a little background, and
It's part of the medicine that didn't go in.
yeah,
It's like
and in Mitzvah Shem we'll learn, hopefully in Mitzvah Shem next week and the week after. This is our avodah as a achana for Yud Shevat. I know it's a little bit nuanced. I hope that all of us could enjoy.
So we're doing it today
The
and on
process.
Shabbos?
No, Shabbos we're going to go back. I know you want to learn a